The door that was the wall. On the opposites, reconciled. A man stood for many years before a wall he could not pass. The wall was not a wall in the ordinary sense. It was a wall in his life. It stood between him and the thing he wanted most, which he could not, even at 60, have said in plain words. He only knew that the thing was on the other side of the wall, and that the wall had stood between him and it for as long as he could remember. He had tried, in his youth, to break through the wall. He had brought a hammer. He had struck the stones, day after day, for 2 years. The wall had not cracked. His hammer had broken. He had bought another hammer. That one had broken too. He had given up on hammers. He had tried, in his middle years, to climb the wall. He had built ladders. The ladders had been too short. He had built taller ladders. They had fallen. He had built a great scaffold against the wall, taking 3 years, and on the day he had at last reached the top of the scaffold, he had looked over the wall and seen, on the other side, only the same kind of country he had been standing in all along. He had been confused. He had climbed down. He had decided that the thing he was seeking must not be visible from above. He had tried, in his later years, to pray to the wall. He had brought small offerings, bread, flowers, a bowl of milk. He had laid them at the foot of the wall. He had knelt. He had asked the wall in many different formulations what he could do to be allowed to pass. The wall had not answered. The offerings had sat in the rain. He had become, by his 60th year, very tired. One evening in autumn, he sat down with his back against the wall, and he did nothing. He did not strike it. He did not climb it. He did not pray to it. He did not even particularly want to pass through it any more. He had been wanting to pass through it for so long that the wanting had become a kind of background noise, which he no longer attended to. He sat. He felt the stone of the wall against his back. He looked at the field on his side of the wall. The field was, in the evening light, quite beautiful. He had not before noticed. He sat for a long time. He had been sitting perhaps an hour when he felt the wall behind him shift. He turned slowly. The wall had become, in the place where his back had been, a door. It was an ordinary door. It was made of the same stone as the rest of the wall, but it was hinged, and it had a handle, and the handle was at the height of his hand, and it was as if the door had always been there, and he had only now noticed. He stood up. He laid his hand on the handle. The wall spoke. "I am also a door," said the wall. "I have always been a door. I have been a door, in fact, for as long as I have been a wall. You did not need to break me. You did not need to climb me. You did not need to pray to me. You needed to stop opposing me long enough for the door in me to appear." "Why did you not show me before?" said the man. "You were never before in a state where you could see the door," said the wall. "A man with a hammer cannot see a door. He can only see something to strike. A man with a ladder cannot see a door. He can only see something to climb. A man with offerings cannot see a door. He can only see something to bargain with. The door is visible only to the man with nothing in his hands and nothing in his mouth. You arrived this evening with nothing. The door arrived for you. We are in some sense the same thing. The wall and the door are not different. The seeing of them is different." The man stood for a moment with his hand on the handle. He turned the handle. The door opened. On the other side was the thing he had been seeking. It had been very close. It had been the whole time just past the wall. He did not, when he saw it, particularly need to enter the door. He had, by sitting down with his back against the wall, already become the kind of man who could see the thing. The seeing was, in some sense, the passing through. He stood at the open door, looking at what lay beyond, for a long time, and then he closed the door gently and walked back into his own field, which he had not before noticed was beautiful. He lived another 12 years. He did not pass through the door again. He did not need to. The wall is also a door. It has always been a door. The door is visible only to the one with nothing in his hands and nothing in his mouth. The man with a hammer cannot see it. The man with a ladder cannot see it. The man with offerings cannot see it. The seeing of the door is the passing through.